My phone buzzed once, then went quiet. A single text from my mother appeared on the screen. "Elena, you don't need to come back. Some places aren't meant for you. No call, no explanation. Just that line, cold and final." Outside, snow fell over the city like ash. I stared at my coffee until it turned lukewarm, wondering how a family could erase someone with just 12 words. It was Thanksgiving week, the one time I still believed maybe this year would feel different. But when I opened our family group chat, I saw the photos. Candles, turkey, wine glasses, all tagged. Everyone smiling, except me. I scrolled back to her message. Read it again. The silence that followed wasn't loud, it was hollow, like the air right after something breaks. "Some places aren't meant for you." I looked around my apartment where the only sound was the fridge humming and the city lights flickering through the snow. In my head, I could see them, Mom laughing at the head of the table, Dad carving the turkey, Ryan cracking another smug joke. They probably told themselves I was too sensitive, too distant, too Elena. And maybe I was. I'd stopped being their quiet fixer years ago, the one who smiled through insults and picked up the bill no one else offered to split. I pressed my palm to the cold window, watching a couple across the street carry groceries together, breath fogging the air. It looked warm, ordinary, everything I used to want family to feel like. My phone was still on the counter, the message still glowing. I thought about replying, about begging for a reason. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I said it out loud, barely a whisper. "You said I don't belong there." "Fine." Then I added quieter, like a vow only the night could hear. "I'll build something you'll never forget." For a moment, the city seemed to pause, snowflakes hanging mid-air, traffic lights frozen red. And in that stillness, something inside me shifted. If you've ever been cut off by the people who made you, you'll know the exact second pain turns to purpose. That's the moment I stopped being their daughter and started becoming something else entirely. When I was a kid, I didn't draw people. I drew places. While other children filled notebooks with faces and stick figures, mine were covered in roofs, stairs, and windows that led nowhere. I liked how buildings made sense. You could design where things belonged. People weren't like that. My parents never really saw it as talent. To them, it was just another phase. Ryan, my younger brother, was the golden one, the funny one, the one who could skip responsibility and still get praised for potential. I was the quiet one who thought too much. I still remember the night I showed them my first dream. I was 15, sitting at the breakfast table with a rolled-up sketch in my hands, a greenhouse I'd designed from scratch. Sunlight, glass walls, ivy climbing along beams. I thought it was beautiful. I pushed the drawing toward them and said I think I could actually build this someday. My dad barely looked up from his newspaper. Mom smiled, the kind of smile that means no. "Sweetheart, that's ambitious, but you might want to focus on something practical." Ryan leaned over, grinning. "Looks like a fish tank for plants." They laughed. I didn't. Later that night, I found my drawing crumpled in the trash coffee grounds, staining the paper. That was the night I learned silence could be armor. After that, I stopped showing them what I made. I applied for architecture school in secret, got in on a scholarship. When I called Mom to tell her, she sighed. "Architecture? That's a man's world, honey. You're too soft for that." I went anyway. 3 jobs, secondhand furniture, black coffee, and cold bagels for years. When I finally graduated, I thought they'd be proud. They weren't. Ryan had meetings and Dad's knees were suddenly too bad for long flights. Still, I sent photos of my first office, just a small studio, white walls, 1 folding table. Mom texted back, "Looks small but cute." That's when I stopped needing applause. But their voices still followed me. Ryan would call during family dinners, put me on speaker, bragging about his real estate projects. Mom would laugh, "You and your brother both in buildings. Isn't that funny?" No, it wasn't. Here's the thing about being invisible. You start to get comfortable in the quiet. You build your life brick by brick, thinking no one notices, until one day you look up and realize the thing you've built is stronger than the people who doubted you. It's funny how silence, when kept long enough, starts to sound a lot like strength. And all it takes is 1 dinner, 1 sentence, 1 push to make you remember exactly what you're capable of. The night everything cracked open started quietly. We were gathered around my parents' long oak table, the same one that had seen every birthday, every holiday, every argument politely disguised as family talk. The smell of roasted lamb filled the room, garlic butter, expensive wine, the kind of dinner that photographs well. Ryan, of course, was the center of gravity. He always was. He was talking about his new business venture, a luxury bar downtown. Everyone leaned in like he was presenting the cure for boredom. Mom looked at him like he hung the moon. Dad nodded in approval, half listening but smiling anyway. I stayed quiet, cutting my food into small, perfect squares, an old habit from years of pretending calm. Then Ryan looked over. "You're the expert on buildings, right, sis? What do you think of my spot midtown right across from the new plaza?" I looked up, meeting his smirk. "It's risky," I said. "High rent. Not much foot traffic after 9. You'd need a solid draw to keep it alive." The air shifted, forks paused. Then Mom's voice cut in sharp, polished, sugar-coated. "Elena, please. Your brother's worked hard on this. You always have something critical to say." My throat tightened. I wasn't being critical. I was giving. Ryan chuckled, interrupting. "She doesn't get it, Mom. Not everyone lives in spreadsheets and blueprints." Laughter followed. Familiar, cruel. Someone even clapped him on the shoulder. I swallowed hard. "I'm just saying," Mom lifted a hand, graceful but final. "Sweetheart, if you can't be supportive, maybe just enjoy your meal." That tone, that quiet blade she'd mastered over the years. The conversation moved on without me like it always did. Ryan kept talking about his investors, which I knew didn't exist. Dad kept nodding. My aunt refilled glasses. And me, I just sat there small again, 15, watching another dream go in the trash. When I finally pushed back my chair, the legs scraped against the tile loud and raw. Everyone looked up. "You know what I said? Maybe you're right. Maybe I really don't belong here." Ryan smirked. "Guess that's finally sinking in." Mom's voice came calm, precise. "Elena, if you can't act like family, maybe you shouldn't come next time." There it was, the line that turned exile into instruction. I didn't argue, didn't cry. I just grabbed my coat and walked out, my heels echoing down that too familiar hallway. Through the reflection in the glass door, I saw them still laughing, still eating as if I'd never existed. When I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A message from Mom, "Don't come back until you learn to respect your brother." I stared at the screen until the glow blurred into the frost on the windshield. That was it. The moment the warmth finally burned out and something colder, cleaner, stronger took its place. The days after that dinner passed in a kind of quiet blur. I didn't call anyone. Not Mom, not Ryan, not even Lydia, my business partner, my one steady constant through every storm. I went to work, smiled when needed, nodded through meetings, but everything inside me felt muted, like I was moving through fog. Then one morning something shifted. An email pinged into my inbox with the subject line, "Property listing, Midtown Corner Lot." I almost deleted it, until I saw the address, the same block Ryan had bragged about at dinner, the same dream spot he couldn't stop boasting about, and now it was for sale. I sat frozen, staring at the screen. The cursor blinked at the edge of possibility. Lydia poked her head into my office, coffee in hand. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I turned the monitor toward her. "Remember the spot Ryan wanted for his bar?" She squinted. "Yeah, the one he said was too exclusive for small projects." I nodded. "It's open, and I can afford it." For a long moment she said nothing, just stared, lips curving into a slow grin. "You're thinking about buying it, aren't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That night I drove down to the lot. The city was half asleep, rain in the air, neon lights flickering from the diner across the street. I parked, stepped out, and walked the cracked perimeter boots crunching over gravel. The old brick walls still stood weathered but strong. Rusted beams reached toward the sky like bones. I could already see it, the glass, the light, the open atrium filled with air and green, a space that didn't need anyone's approval to exist. By the end of the week, I'd signed the offer. By the end of the month, it was mine. Construction began slow, then all at once. Mornings before dawn, steel rising against the skyline. The smell of metal coffee and wet dust became my new perfume. Lydia would show up with 2 cups and a grin. "You're not just building a space," she said once. "You're exorcising ghosts." Maybe she was right. Every beam, every wall, it all felt like rewriting something old. A year passed in blueprints and concrete. No phone calls from home, no texts, just the sound of progress humming through silence. When it finally stood finished, I walked through it at sunrise. Glass above me, marble beneath, light everywhere. My reflection in the mirrored panels looked different, still me, but steadier anchored. We called it the Atrium by Voss. It wasn't revenge, it was proof. My name standing tall on the skyline they said I didn't belong to. A week before the grand opening, Lydia slid a newspaper across my desk. "Look," she said, tapping the headline. "They're calling it the city's new landmark." I smiled, slow, quiet, certain. They told me never to come back. Soon they'd be walking through doors with my name on them. Opening night felt like stepping into another life. The atrium shimmered under amber light, every panel of glass reflecting the city's heartbeat. Soft jazz floated through the air, blending with the hum of voices and champagne laughter. It didn't smell like revenge. It smelled like arrival. Guests poured in, dressed to impress clients, architects, investors, even a few critics who once ignored my calls. I smiled, shook hands, felt the warmth of cameras flashing. Lydia glided through the crowd in a green silk dress, clipboard in one hand, champagne in the other. She leaned close, whispering over the music. "You did it." I smiled back, about to answer, and then I heard it. A voice that didn't belong here. Too loud, too familiar. "Ryan." I froze, glass in hand. I turned toward the entrance, and there they were. My brother Tuck's jacket, unbuttoned, confidence oozing like spilled liquor. Behind him, my mother clutching her purse like she owned the room. And my father a step behind, quiet as ever, eyes darting everywhere but mine. For half a second, I thought maybe I was hallucinating. But then Ryan's laugh rolled across the marble floor, and the sound made my chest tighten. "Guess word gets around, Lydia," murmured beside me. They weren't on the guest list. I knew every name that walked through these doors. At the front desk, the hostess smiled politely. "I'm sorry, sir. There's no reservation under Voss." Ryan frowned. "Check again. It's our name on the building, isn't it?" Mom stepped forward, her tone dripping superiority. "We were told this was a private family event. I'm Mrs. Voss." The hostess hesitated, then looked toward me. I set my glass down, walked across the floor. The chatter around us dimmed with each click of my heels. "Good evening," I said softly. Mom turned. For a heartbeat, confusion crossed her face like she didn't recognize me in my own space. Then came the disapproval, the judgment, the same old script. "Elena," Ryan smirked. "So this is your little project, cute. Thought you'd be designing coffee shops or something." I met his eyes. Calm. It used to be small. Then I stopped listening to people who thought small. His fake smile faltered. "We'll take a table," he said quickly. "We're family after all." I nodded to the hostess. "Take them to the public lounge downstairs. Walk-ins only." Ryan blinked, thrown off. What Mom's voice sharpened. "We're your family, Elena." I held her gaze steady as glass. "You told me not to come back. I just kept my promise." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Even the pianist hesitated mid-note. Ryan's jaw tightened. "You think this makes you better than us?" I stepped closer until my reflection filled his eyes. "No," I said quietly. "It just means I finally stopped needing you." Then I turned to the hostess. "If they stay, make sure they pay for their drinks." Their faces froze. Shock, disbelief, humiliation. Everything they'd once made me feel. I walked away before any of them could speak. The click of my heels trailed into the music. Lydia met me halfway across the room. "They came uninvited," she whispered. "Exactly," I said, just like always. By the time the music faded, the crowd had thinned. Laughter dissolved into soft murmurs, glasses clinking one last time. The atrium shimmered in half-light. My reflection caught between marble and glass. I slipped away to the upper terrace, heels in one hand, champagne in the other. Below me, the city glowed streets like silver veins, headlights threading through the night. Through the glass roof, I could still see them. Ryan and my parents sitting stiff at the bar, pretending to belong in a place they once said I'd never build. They didn't see me watching. They never did. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of rain and new steel. It smelled like endings and beginnings at the same time. My phone buzzed a text from Lydia. "You okay? They're still downstairs." I typed back, "Let them be. They'll figure it out." Setting the phone aside, I leaned on the railing, tracing my finger along the cold glass. In the reflection, I saw it all at once, me, the city, and the building that rose from everything they broke. A year ago, I was standing outside their house, afraid to knock. Now they were standing outside mine, waiting to be let in. Funny how that turns. For a brief second, I thought about calling Mom, saying something kind, maybe something like closure. But then her old message replayed in my mind, "Some places aren't meant for you." Maybe she was right. That house wasn't meant for me. This one was. Behind me, the doors slid open. Lydia stepped out, coat draped over her arm, hair tousled from the night. "They're leaving," she said softly. I nodded. Good. She handed me another glass, her smile warm and knowing. So, what now? I looked down at the glowing sign above the entrance, the Atrium by Voss. My name, my work, my peace. Now I said I build things that don't need anyone's permission to stand. Lydia clinked her glass against mine. To that. We stood there for a moment, two silhouettes against the skyline. Then I turned toward the elevator, ready to go home. My phone buzzed again, an unknown number. A message. "Your place is beautiful." I didn't know. Mom. I smiled, set the phone face down on the railing, and left it there. Because some stories don't need replies. If you've ever had to build peace from the pieces someone else left behind, trust me, you're not the only one. Share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next one.